Good morning, and thank you for joining us for today's webinar. Our topic today is Microsoft Dynamics GP Year-End Close. I'm Dee Bowers, and I'll be your host. Before we start, I'm going to briefly go over how to use the webinar pane. There we go. Can everybody hear me? Okay.
Yes.
So on the right side of your screen, you'll see an orange arrow. You can use that to toggle the webinar pane between the open and closed position. You'll also have a chat window. Please feel free to enter questions throughout the presentation. We'll have two Q&A sessions, one after Theresa Brown's presentation and one after Greg's presentation at the end of the webinar. You'll also notice some audio settings. If you're calling in using your telephone, please select the Use Telephone option. Alternatively, if you're using your computer, please choose the Use Mic and Speakers option. If you don't have the right option selected, you will hear an echo. Last of all, webinar participants will receive an email within 48 hours with a link to the recorded webinar and slide deck. We also have an exit survey, so please take a minute and let us know how we're doing. Now that we've gone over the meeting software, I'd like to introduce you to our presenters. First, we have Theresa Brown, Director of our GP practice at McKenna. Theresa has over 14 years of experience implementing Microsoft Dynamics GP. She's also a Microsoft Dynamics GP Certified Master, a Microsoft Certified Trainer, and was recognized in 2008 as the #1 trainer for Dynamics GP by Microsoft. I'm also pleased to present Greg Horner, Manager of our GP practice at McKenna. Greg has over 22 years of accounting and payroll experience. He's a Microsoft Certified Professional and in Microsoft Dynamics GP Financials. He also has extensive knowledge of GP HR Payroll and Management Reporter 2012. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn the presentation over to Theresa.
Thanks, Dee. Welcome to our year-end presentation. I'd like to thank some of you who have been attending this for many, many years, some in excess of 10 years. Today, our agenda is to go through the modules that you're going to be closing for Dynamics GP. We're going to start with sales, moving on to inventory, purchasing, fixed assets, general ledger, and then I'm going to turn the reins over to Greg Horner to go over the payroll closing steps. Note that we're going to have two separate Q&A sessions. As soon as we've gone through the general ledger closing section, we'll have a Q&A session, and if you can ask your questions through the chat screen, we'll be able to get those addressed for you. We'll probably have 5 to 10 minutes. Then I'll turn it over to Greg to cover the payroll closing, and at the end of his session, he will also have another 5 to 10 minutes for questions and answers. Due to the large number of participants and the audio, we wanted to make sure that you were able to put those in through chat, but we do have you in listen-only mode today. If there are any final questions that we are unable to answer during the presentation through the chat session, we'll make sure that we address those for you and get them out to you within 48 hours. So with that, let's talk a little bit about support dates. For those of you who are on Dynamics GP 2010 or GP10, congratulations, you are on a service pack that is supported today. At the end of this presentation, you're going to be talking to Greg, and Greg will talk a little bit about the folks who are on version 10 and the support dates for payroll tax tables. For those of you who are on prior versions, version 9 or earlier, I recommend that you contact us so that we can talk about getting you onto a supported version of Dynamics. Let's talk a little bit about planning. Planning the year-end close process is a really, really critical step in your closing. I do recommend that everybody use this as kind of a template to create a year-end checklist and to hold a planning meeting with all of your team members to make sure that everybody understands the importance of the timing of the year-end close. In red there on the first task, I've got hold a year-end planning meeting. One thing you might want to do is download the checklist for year-end close from Customer Source, and you can access that with your Customer Source password and login. If you do not have access to Customer Source or unfamiliar with Customer Source, please contact our support desk and we can get that out to you. What I've got here is a column for the due date, and you can specify those due dates during your planning meeting. The designated contact is the person who will be in charge of closing the module. The duration to complete is something that I recommend you track because some of the processes may take 15, 20 minutes, an hour. It really depends on the size of your data. So it would be a good idea to put in the start time and the end time so you know for next year how long it takes to close that particular series or step, and then the completion date as you complete each of those tasks. We're going to go through each of these checklist items in a little bit more detail as I go through the presentation, and then there's a lot more detail in the closing materials that you can download from Microsoft on Customer Source. The first module we are going to look at is the sales series. Typically, one of the first things you'll be doing at the end of the year is closing out your revenue. The steps that you'll want to take are to make sure all of your customer invoices, whether they're through the sales series, the receivables, project accounting,